All right, all right. You spin me right round, baby, right round. Oh, you gotta learn about circles, huh? These pretty easy. Stuff you know. And if you don't know, well, then you're gonna know. All right, so let's go through this real quick. Dealing with circles, a few things we have to do. Beware of radius and diameter, of course, they're not the same thing. Twice the radius is the diameter. What you see here is the radius, 1.2 meters. Diameter would be twice that, 2.4. Definitions over here. It's a little pixelated here. Sorry about that, but the hard copy you're looking at is good to go. All right, so determine the area. All right, well, 2-point format. That means you got to set it up and get used to this. The first thing we need to do when we set this up is really write down what we know. So here, all we know is that the radius is 1.2 meters. So R is radius, and don't worry, you'll get used to all these symbols. They're asking for the area. In this course, area will be capital A. You will find these on reference table page 5, but don't worry, you will see that soon enough. The area here is going to come in the unit of meters squared. All right, good. So we need an equation for this. The equation that goes with this is given over here on the right. The area of a circle is pi r squared. For those of you who are interested, you can represent this in terms of diameter. You could represent this in terms of circumference. I'll just write it over here for fun. But basically, if you were given a diameter, of course, you could first turn it to a radius, or you could say, well, pi r is diameter over 2. You could do something like this. Diameter over 2, that whole quantity would then be squared. So just another way to represent this. Not that we need it today. All right, let's keep going over here. So number 2, substitute. So the area is just going to be pi times the radius, which is not 1.2, but 1.2 meters squared. Of course, that little m for meters does not go into your calculator. And then you come up with a solution over here. The area comes out 2. And you would have to do this. Let's see, 1.2 squared is 1.44 times pi, 3.14. Gives you about 4.5 meters here. So this is a 2 sig fig problem. 2 sig figs right here. So this actually comes out to 4.5 meters squared. There's the area of the circle. Boom, done. Next, determine the circumference of this circle. Okay, well, what do we know? We know a few things. We know the radius, 1.2 meters. We now know the area. We determined that up above, 4.5 meters squared. Don't get overly concerned as to whether you were going to use that area. It's just good to write a list of what we call our givens, the things that we have been provided. So they're asking for circumference. Circumference is represented with a capital C, and circumference is a length, so that comes in meters. So the equation here, there's a few different equations. You may have learned pi times diameter. Diameter we write with a capital D. Or you may have learned, which I believe it's written this way in our reference table, 2 pi r, which of course is just diameter, just twice the radius. So it's really pi times 2r. That one's easiest for us to use right now, given that we have r. By the way, you could represent circumference even with area in it. You'd have to rearrange a little bit over here, substitute for diameter. But that's a fun little exercise. I'll give you some bonus credit for doing that later on. So if we substitute here, circumference 2 pi times, give me that pen back, 1.2 meters. All right. And of course, you get your answer. So 2 pi, 3.14 becomes 6.28. And 6.28 times 1.2, we're going to keep it to 2 sig figs, gives us 7.5 meters. So circumference is 7.5 meters. Okay, good to go. Good to go. There you go. Finally, a question that leans on the circumference. After traversing the perimeter of the circle 4 times, what total distance would a cat have traveled? So here, Perimeter, you have to connect with circumference. So really, the given that applies here is that the circumference is 7.5 meters. And the question is asking you for, we can put those other factors in if we want. They're asking you for distance. We write with a minuscule d. Distance is the question mark. In this case, you're not going to look up a distance formula. You have to use your brain. In this case, the distance is 4 times the circumference. So this actually does occasionally show up. So 4c, in which case you come over here, plug it in, and of course, basic business. 4 times 7.5 meters, and that's going to give you 30 meters as your answer. Now, by the way, the 4 here is not 1 sig fig. If they tell you it's traversed 4 times, a counting number like that, generally you can assume that means exactly 4. So that's infinite sig figs, which means we follow the 7.5. So we'd go 30 meters here. Now, you may argue, oh, wait a minute, but how do you know it's exactly 4? And then you could get sig figs on your 4. But for a problem written like this, we just assume that's a counting number, and we don't worry about its sig figs. All right, good. You can do a couple circle practice problems.